At 12 p.m., a mother watched her daughter walk into the safest place in town, the Krug Park Pool. The sun was out, the lifeguards were on duty, and nothing felt dangerous. At 4 p.m., that mother returned to pick her up. Her son was waiting on the curb, but his sister had vanished. She didn't drown, she didn't get lost in the crowd. She walked out of that gate and stepped into a nightmare that would stretch 1,800 miles across the country. On July 6, 2004, 15-year-old Ashley Martinez had a simple plan: swim with her brother, get a tan, and go home for dinner. It was a Tuesday in St. Joseph, Missouri, the kind of day where the only worry should have been sunburn. But when her mother, Gloria, pulled the car up to the entrance, Ashley wasn't there. Her 13-year-old brother climbed into the backseat alone. He said Ashley had left early. He thought she was walking home. Panic set in fast. Gloria raced the car back to their house, praying to see Ashley in the driveway. But the house was empty. The silence was heavy, and when Gloria walked into Ashley's bedroom, she realized this wasn't just a teenager losing track of time. She looked at the nightstand and saw the one thing Ashley would never leave behind if she planned on running away. That's when Gloria knew. Ashley hadn't just walked away. She had been lured away. Gloria called the police immediately, but in 2004, a 15-year-old missing girl triggered a specific, dismissive reflex in law enforcement. The responding officer didn't see a crime scene. He saw a teenager with a history. They looked at her file. Ashley had run away once before, back in 2001. She was gone for 24 hours, stayed within state lines, and came back when she got hungry. To the St. Joseph Police Department, this was just round 2, a rebellion, a phase. They told Gloria to wait by the phone. They said she'd be back when the sun went down. But Gloria wasn't looking at a file. She was looking at her daughter's room, and the physics of a runaway just didn't add up. A runaway packs a bag. A runaway takes money. Most importantly, a runaway takes their lifeline. Ashley left everything. On her dresser sat her asthma inhaler, a device she needed to breathe. Beside it lay her prescription medication for bipolar disorder. Without those pills, Ashley's mental state could spiral into mania or severe depression within days. Leaving them behind wasn't an act of rebellion, it was an act of self-destruction. And then there were the cats. Ashley had 3 of them. She was obsessed. They were her emotional anchors. The idea that she would walk out the door and leave them to starve was impossible to anyone who actually knew her. She took nothing but the swimsuit she was wearing. The investigation stalled before it even started, leaving the burden of proof on the only witness they had, her 13-year-old brother. He was the last person to see her alive. Under pressure, he told police the truth, or at least the part of it he understood. He said she walked out of the pool gate to meet a guy. Police latched onto that. They assumed the guy was a crush, a high school boyfriend. They spent precious hours looking for a dropout with a messy locker or a teenage rebel with a learner's permit. They were scanning yearbooks and asking classmates. They were wrong. Ashley wasn't meeting a boy from homeroom. She was meeting a predator who had been waiting for this exact moment. He wasn't 16, he was 32. He didn't have a learner's permit, he had a criminal record. And while police were waiting for a teenager to come home for dinner, a 32-year-old ex-con was driving Ashley Martinez toward the state line. While the police chased high school rumors, Ashley's friends began to whisper the truth they had been too afraid to share. Ashley had a secret. For weeks, she had been seeing a man. Not a boy from algebra class, but a man named Chris. When detectives finally pulled the name Christopher Hart, the profile that emerged was terrifying. He wasn't a peer. He was 32 years old, a grown man who didn't spend his afternoons at work, but loitering around the Krug Park Pool. He drove a silver 1995 Pontiac Bonneville, a car that became a fixture in the background of Ashley's life. This wasn't a romance, it was a hunt. While Gloria was driving her daughter to school, worried about grades and curfews, Hart was waiting in the shadows. He was methodically convincing a 15-year-old girl with a chemical imbalance that they were in love and that he was her ticket out of St. Joseph. Just as the investigation started to pivot toward abduction, a wrench was thrown into the gears, a witness sighting that defied all logic. The vice principal of Ashley's middle school, a woman who knew Ashley well, came forward with a shocking claim. She stated she saw Ashley after the disappearance. She was in a car, sitting next to a black male, but it was what happened next that froze the investigation. The vice principal said Ashley looked right at her and waved. That single wave did more damage than Hart ever could. It suggested consent. It suggested safety. Police looked at the witness statement and saw confirmation of their bias. If she was waving, she wasn't a victim. She was just a runaway having the time of her life. They pulled back. The urgency evaporated. But the seasons didn't stop changing. Summer turned to fall, the leaves fell, and the sightings stopped. The vice principal's story gave everyone false hope, masking the terrifying reality that Ashley was no longer in control. While St. Joseph police were checking local malls for a rebellious teenager, the silver Pontiac Bonneville was eating up asphalt, crossing state lines, mountain ranges, and time zones. Months later, on a rainy night in November, a patrol car 1,800 miles away in Olympia, Washington, turned on its lights. The officer wasn't looking for a missing girl. He was looking for a thief. But as his headlights washed over the license plate of a silver Pontiac, he unknowingly initiated the final, tragic chapter of this mystery. The car had been found, but it was a long way from Missouri. Olympia, Washington, November 2004. The landscape had changed from the flat plains of Missouri to the dense, rain-soaked forests of the Pacific Northwest. 4 months had passed since Ashley walked out of the pool gate. The break in the case didn't come from a missing persons tip. It came from a petty crime. A 911 call reported a purse snatching, a silver car fleeing the scene of a theft. When patrol units spotted the vehicle, they realized the description matched a nationwide bolo. It was the silver 1995 Pontiac Bonneville. The takedown was aggressive. Police cruisers boxed the vehicle in, forcing it to the curb. Officers emerged with guns drawn, screaming commands. They pulled the driver from the seat and slammed him against the wet pavement. It was Christopher Hart. He was 1,800 miles from home, driving a car that had been the subject of a 4-month manhunt. But as the handcuffs clicked shut, the officers' eyes were already scanning the rest of the vehicle. They looked at the passenger seat. Empty. They shone their flashlights into the back seat, praying to see a scared 15-year-old girl hiding on the floorboards. Nothing. The hope shifted instantly. Maybe she was at a motel? Maybe he had stashed her in an apartment nearby. Detectives from St. Joseph, Missouri boarded a plane immediately. They needed to sit across from the man who stole their local girl. When they entered the interrogation room, they didn't find a man racked with guilt. They found a man playing games. Hart was arrogant. He leaned back in his chair, seemingly unbothered by the gravity of the situation. Under pressure, he gave them crumbs. He admitted he knew Ashley. He admitted that yes, they had left Missouri together on that hot July day. He confirmed he was the one she met outside the pool. For a moment, the detectives thought he was about to give up her location, but then Hart stopped. He realized that without a body, he held all the leverage. He shut down. He demanded a lawyer. The room went silent. Outside in the impound lot, forensic teams were tearing the Pontiac apart. They were looking for DNA, fingerprints, anything that proved Ashley had been in that car. But it was what they found in the trunk that turned the investigation from a rescue mission into a recovery effort. They popped the latch. They were expecting suitcases, maybe clothes. Instead, lying in the dark of the trunk was a single, terrifying item. It was a black bikini printed with red cherries. the exact swimsuit Ashley was wearing under her clothes the day she vanished. She had left home with nothing else. If her swimsuit was in the trunk, where was Ashley? There was no body in the trunk, but there was also no trace of Ashley Martinez living in Washington. No clothes, no toothbrush, no evidence she had ever stepped foot in the apartment Hart was driving to. Police were left with a terrifying timeline. Christopher Hart had driven 1,800 miles across the spine of America. He drove through the cornfields of Nebraska, the high deserts of Wyoming, and the dense, dark forests of Idaho. It is a route filled with millions of acres of nothingness. Detectives came to a chilling realization. When they left Missouri, there were 2 people in that Pontiac. By the time the car reached the Pacific, there was only one. Somewhere along that massive stretch of highway, amidst the mountains and the silence, Ashley stopped being a passenger. Christopher Hart was extradited back to Missouri, but without a body, prosecutors couldn't charge him with murder. He went to prison for the purse snatching, for parole violations, and for tampering with a motor vehicle. He served his time in silence. He never gave up a location. He never drew a map. He took the secret of where he stopped that car to his cell, and eventually, he took it to his grave. And because Hart kept his mouth shut, the legal status of Ashley Martinez remains a final insult. In some databases, she is still classified as an endangered runaway, a label that implies she made a choice. But looking at the evidence, the medicine left behind, the cats waiting at the door, and the swimsuit found in a predator's trunk, we know the truth. Ashley didn't run away. She was taken on a one-way trip.
Today, Ashley Martinez would be 36 years old. She should be celebrating birthdays, building a career, living a life. Instead, she remains frozen in time. A 15-year-old girl in a cherry print bikini, smiling in a photograph that is fading with age. Her brother, the boy left waiting on the curb that Tuesday afternoon, has had to grow up with the weight of that final image. He was the last innocent person to see her alive. He watched her walk toward the gate, assuming she would be right back. She never turned around. Christopher Hart is likely the only person on Earth who knows the truth. He knows if Ashley is buried in a Missouri cornfield, lost in the high desert of Wyoming, or hidden deep in the timber of Washington state. But he has chosen silence. That means the truth lies with the witnesses who never knew what they were seeing. Someone saw that silver 1995 Pontiac Bonneville on the road in the summer of 2004. Someone saw a 32-year-old man and a teenage girl on that long, lonely highway across America. If that was you, it is not too late to speak. Ashley went to the pool for a swim. She never came home. Don't let her be forgotten.